first week. We're kicking off the season, and we are going to just touch on some teams that we think are going to be interesting, some players, some storylines, some different things. We're going to have some predictions here, and we want to just make sure that you guys have all the information you need to know when it comes to the NBA season kicking off. It kicked off yesterday. We already saw the Lakers go down, so I'll take that. I'll take that. Anytime you see the Lakers go down, now it was to the Golden State Warriors, so I get it. It's kind of like that. I want the Golden State Warriors to kind of, take an L too. You can't have both. But at least the Lakers lost. The problem is the Lakers, we already know they're going to be bad. So it's like, it's just piling it on.
It's not as much fun.
It's not as much fun.
It's much more fun when they underachieve. Not when they do what we expect them to do, Yeah. If they're shitty and we all saw it coming, it's not nearly as much fun.
But it is so great to watch them just continue to crash and burn. But guys, real quick, Discord, ! Discord in the chat. Join our Discord server so you guys can carry on conversations even when we're offline, even when we're doing all these other, games and everything else. We can keep conversations rolling. But Speez, we're going to break down some of these divisions, and, there's a lot of interesting things happening. I know you follow some basketball. You got your Houston boys down there. They have a nice...
They got a ways to go.
But they have a nice little team there that they're building some young talent.
Absolutely. They got a good core that they're trying to develop. Some guys I'm behind. Some guys I think could, be better off elsewhere, but we'll get to them. So definitely not a threat to do anything this season, as I'm looking at the numbers here, and they're currently the worst odds in the NBA to win their division at plus 24,000, not 2,400, 24,000.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah.
Let's just say it's a long shot, to say the least. So yeah, it's going to be pretty tough for them, but you know what? We can start with that division, and let's go ahead and start with that division. See, who we like in that. So let's dive in. Here we go. We have let me pull it up here. All right, Southwest Division. So this is the Pelicans, the Spurs, the Mavericks, the Rockets, and the Memphis Grizzlies. So, when I look at these teams, obviously we looked at we'll touch on your Rockets, but when I'm looking at the top of the cream of the crop of this division, you got Dallas, Memphis, and the most interesting team for me is the New Orleans Pelicans with Zion Williamson coming back, right?
Easily, so, yes.
Zion Williamson is kind of the X factor for that team. They have a nice roster. I mean, you have CJ McCollum, you still have Ingram, Brandon Ingram there, and you have, a force of Zion Williamson. So that honestly is one of the most interesting teams. Dallas, we know what we're getting with Luka. You see a lot of Luka down there. Hey, Wags, thank you so much. All your crew walking in like a champion. Let's go, Wags. Thank you so much for the raid. Appreciate that. My name is Chris. This is Speez. We normally have Scott in here, but this is a guest host. Thank you so much for joining and giving us a raid. Hope you had a great stream. Can we get a shout out for Wags? Thank you so much, Wags. Hope you have a great night. Hey, hang out with us. Talk some sports. Scott got the boot. Yeah, we booted him. He's out. He's done.
Got another average white guy taking his place, baby.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for the follow, Fear on the Tide. Thank you. We're doing a little NBA preview right now. We're going to get into week 7 of the NFL very, very soon. So don't go anywhere. We have a lot to talk about. Best bets for the NFL and all our takeaways from the top games of the week. So, but first we're doing some NBA highlights and talking here. You get a lot of Dallas Mavericks talk down there in Texas as well, because that's the team that has kind of elevated to the top. But Luka, I don't know. Like, I love Luka, what he can do, but you got to build specific pieces around him to make him work.
No question.
I think they've done that, but like, what is Spencer Dinwiddie going to add? Like, is he going to get better? Like, what are they going to do around him? And I guess that's my biggest question with the Dallas Mavericks.
Yeah, I mean, they picked up a guy from Houston, Christian Wood, who was the Rockets picked him up. He came over from Detroit and actually put together a couple of good seasons here in Houston. Now, the question becomes, is he a guy that put together good seasons in Houston because they were an awful team and they didn't have a whole lot else going on? Or is he a legitimate threat, on a team? He reminds me a little bit of, and he's not this caliber of player by any stretch, but you remember Kevin Love and the kind of numbers that he was putting up in Minnesota. And then all of a sudden, when he went to another team, when he played with LeBron, when he played, why am I blanking on where Kevin Love went? Was it Miami? Am I thinking of Miami? I think Kevin Love went to
Cleveland.
Anyway,
Cleveland.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Shit. He went to Cleveland. I was thinking where he played with LeBron. He wasn't putting up the same kind of numbers, but he was still a solid contributor. I think Christian Wood is going to be that kind of guy. But this is still going to be Luka's team, no question about it. I mean, I'm amazed at what that guy does.
Oh, he's so good.
And to see him do it in the playoffs as well is just completely insane. But I really like the addition of Christian Wood. I think that helps. You mentioned Spencer Dinwiddie. I mean, they've got a couple of other players on there, like, you get your Dorian Finney-Smith. Is it Hardaway Jr.? Isn't he still there? Tim Hardaway Jr., who will occasionally pull a game out of his ass where he shoots lights out and goes nuts. But at the end of the day, it's they need a solid number 2 guy. And I don't know that they have it on this roster right now. And unfortunately for them, the West is deep enough to where you really got to have a better roster top to bottom. That being said, they were just in the Western Conference Finals pretty much with Luka and a bunch of, decent players. The injuries certainly helped to some of the other teams, like, the Grizzlies got hurt, so on and so forth. But who's going to step up and fill that solid number 2 spot for the Mavericks? That's the real question with that team. And, until they get that, because I'm looking here at their team leaders from last season. Points, Luka, 28 a game. Rebounds, Luka, 9 a game. Assists, Luka, 8 a game. Steals, Luka, 1.2 a game. I mean, it's just Luka all the way across the board. Obviously, Porzingis is not there anymore. Jalen Brunson's not there anymore. I think that's a big loss for them. I don't know if Christian Wood is enough to make up for the loss of those 2 guys. We'll see. But, I mean, it really just... Who's going to be that number 2 guy now that Porzingis is gone, now that Jalen Brunson is gone? Is Christian Wood that guy? I guess we'll find out, but I don't know. I don't know if they have enough outside of Luka to make a deep run.
Yeah. I think it's going to be tough for me to like. They're getting a lot of hype, and rightfully so. They made it far last year, and I don't know if the depth is enough for me. And I think there's just a couple other teams that I like a little bit better in the West. But what we got? Clippers, Nuggets, and Clippers are so much better this year. Says Destroy. Dallas is way better this year, but the West is much better. Mavs should be solid, but won't make it to the Western Conference Finals again. I agree with you on there, Destroy on site. I think you're on the right track there. I don't disagree with anything that you said on that. I think the Dallas Mavericks are good, not great. They strike me as maybe a 6 seed, 5-6 seed, maybe in that range. I could see them being in that conversation. But honestly, I mean, the Memphis Grizzlies are the favorite to come out of this one from a betting standpoint. So Memphis, I mean, Ja Morant, I mean, that's a nice little core. They play scrappy basketball. I just always
No, I'm sorry, go ahead. They've got a great core with Ja Morant, with Desmond Bane. I mean, they've just got a lot of really solid. I mean, Ja is the superstar.
They got scrappy players.
You've got like 3 or 4 guys on that team that can get you between 15 to 20 points a night. I mean, if you look at their stats for last year, I mean, they had, I think it was 4 guys on that team that it might have even been 5 guys on that team that averaged more than 15 points a game. I mean, they were really solid. And of course, Ja gets hurt, and that pretty much derailed their postseason. But that's a really, really, really good ball club. And I'm looking at it now. Yeah, they had 4 guys that averaged at least 16 points a game. Ja Morant, we mentioned, and then you have Desmond Bane, who we also talked about. Dylan Brooks, who's there, who I'm not a Dylan Brooks guy. That guy never met a shot he didn't like. I mean, he just jacks up a ton of shots. But he can score, and you've got Jaren Jackson as well. So, I mean, look, that's Steven Adams in the middle is a guy that'll go out and get you 10 rebounds a night.
Yeah.
That's a really, really solid team, and I have a hard time picking against them, not just in their division, but in the Western Conference. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see Memphis win the Western Conference this year and represent the West in the NBA Finals. I think they're that good.
I mean, they have a chance to have one of the best young NBA cores. I mean, they have incredible players that are young. So they're going to be good for a while. And they're not paying a ton of these guys a lot of money between Xavier Tillman and some of these, like, I mean, we all the guys that we were just talked about, like they're in a good spot. So I really like what they got going on. I think they edge this division out over the Mavericks. And I think, they're in a good spot to, have, I mean, they showed what they were last year, and they were incredible. They were in leading the league for a while, top 2-3 team in the league for most of the season. So Spurs and Rockets are in the Wumbayama. Is that his name? Wumbayama? Like the sweepstakes. I think the San Antonio Spurs want him more than Houston does. They're both going to be tanking. I think Houston is that Houston team is the most boring looking roster I've seen on planet Earth. It's absolutely terrible. Well,
they have some really exciting players, but as far as putting a team together, and let's just get this out of the way because nobody gives a shit about Houston when it comes to basketball because they're not going to be very good. But Jalen Green, who they got in the draft last year, was one of the best rookies in basketball last year. Doesn't shoot a high percentage. Look, he's crazy athletic. He's a lot of fun to watch. They just gave an extension to Kevin Porter Jr., who's kind of the wild card because he's a knucklehead. I mean, he got run out of Cleveland because he's a knucklehead. You remember last year he had a game where he left the team at halftime.
I do.
Just walked out of the fucking arena at halftime. I have not forgiven him for that. You're a professional athlete. I don't care if you're a 21-year-old kid. You can't, when you're getting paid millions of dollars, leave at halftime. So thankfully, it's a very team-friendly deal. They can get out of it after a year. It's very incentive-laden. But Kevin Porter Jr., he has these games. He had a game where he had 50 points and 10 assists. He's one of only a handful of guys to ever do that. But they want to play him at the point. He averaged 6 assists and 3 turnovers. If your point guard has a 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio, that's really bad. And it's just, they're not going to be very good. But the Spurs have a lot of practice at tanking. They did it and they got Tim Duncan. So I have a feeling that they're going to do it again this year and get this other kid. Spurs are going to be terrible. The Rockets, I think, will be at least entertaining to watch, but they're going to lose a lot of games. They're going to lose. They're going to have a lot of great highlights. They're a dunk crazy team. They get dunks all the time, and they have some really nice pieces in place. But they're not going to be there. They are not going to win a lot of games. They've got to get a legitimate point guard, and then they've got to figure out who to pair this young core with. They've still got Eric Gordon on the roster. He's making a ton of money. I'm hoping they trade that contract. Because, hopefully somebody who's contending and needs a good shooter, a veteran, will take Aaron Gordon off their hands because they need to get rid of that contract. But they need veteran, solid players to pair with this young core that they have. And it's going to take some time. So, yeah, they got a lot of young guys who love to jack up the ball. Alperen Şengün is a guy that's a sleeper. He's a big man who passes the ball.
They got some nice young talent.
Yeah, but they're a long ways away. They're a long ways away.
So who do you got winning this one? the division, Southwest.
Division, give me Memphis all the way. I'm all in on Memphis.
Okay.
I think they're really, really good. I don't think that the Mavs have enough outside of Luka, and I agree with you. I think one of the most intriguing teams in all of basketball this year is New Orleans. I am a huge Zion fan. I love that guy. He is absolutely phenomenal. But again, I'm gonna go old school. He reminds me of a young Charles Barkley in the way that he plays. Charles came into the league, and people don't remember this about Charles. Was a high flyer. Charles was dunking on everybody. He was blocking shots. He was all over the place. And I remember Charles telling a story about how one of the veterans, and I can't remember who it was, told him, "Listen, young buck, you better stop that, or your career is going to be real short because your knees are going to give before you know it." And if you remember Charles late in his career, he was not a high flyer dunker. He developed a mid-range jump shot. He developed that god-awful backing you down. Like, they changed the rule in basketball because of Charles Barkley, because they would throw it into the post and Charles would take the ball for 20 seconds before shooting a fadeaway jumper. And it was horrible to watch, but he was really good at it. Zion reminds me a lot of a young Charles Barkley that way. Is he going to be the kind of kid that can keep the weight off, because it's been a problem for him? Can he keep the weight off and continue to rely on his athleticism? Or are we going to see him develop into more of a shooter, more of a guy that can get his shot off the dribble, which he's already very good at doing right now? He's going to be a lot of fun to watch. I'm intrigued by the New Orleans team, no question, but I got to give the edge to Memphis. Memphis is my pick of the Southwest.
Love it. Yankees scored, Avs and OT. We got some games coming through here. Overtime alert at the ball, so it looks like Nuggets down 18 in the third. You know what's weird? And this is one of those things. Whenever Nuggets are like high favorites at home, always take the points with the other team. Always. I don't care how good this team is. This is a trend that I have just known. If the Houston Rockets come in and we're 14-point favorites at home, take Houston plus 14. They could, and take the money line. They might win outright. Just saying. That's just how the Nuggets roll. They'll have a good year. They'll be in the top 3, but we'll get to that in a second. Memphis, Dallas, Pelicans, says Destroy on site. He's got that's the order there. But I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be shocked if the Pelicans finish second, or potentially put together a nice run to be first in that division. But I'm going with you. I'm taking Memphis. All right. Go Wolves, says Joker. He loves his Timberwolves. Vontae Davis of basketball, says Reckoning. And then also, I think we were talking about Kevin Porter.
Yeah, he's not a point guard.
No,
he's not a point guard.
So the Nuggets are the Steelers of basketball? Yeah. Yeah, I guess. I mean, maybe I can make those connections. Maybe. All right. So real quick, now before we dive into our next division, I want to just kind of give you some recaps of like maybe some things you might have missed in the offseason. There was a few big time $200 million club players this offseason. Nikola Jokic, Bradley Beal, Karl Anthony Towns, Devin Booker, and Zach LaVine all hit that $200 million club. Woo, that's a lot of money.
That's insane.
Which of those?
Sorry. Go ahead.
Speez. So Jokic, Beal, Towns, Booker, LaVine. Which of those guys do you feel do not garner that $200 million club? Like that deserving. I mean, they're all good players, but if you had to be like, yeah, I'm not paying that guy, or which one of those stands out to you the most? Jokic, Beal, Towns, Booker, LaVine.
Okay, Jokic, it's a no-brainer. Of course, he deserves the money. No question about that. I would say the same for Karl Anthony Towns. A big man like him that can shoot the ball like he can is just, in this day and age, I mean, that's like gold. As far as the other guys go, I don't have a huge problem with it with Bradley Beal, just because he's unquestionably the face of that team. can we say that Zach LaVine is unquestionably the face of the Chicago Bulls? I don't think so. I think DeMar DeRozan
is the star of that team.
So how are you paying your number 2 guy $200 million? To me, that's a mistake. And that's not to say that Zach LaVine and people take takes like that and they run with it and they say, well, how could you say that about Zach LaVine? Blah, blah, blah. All I'm saying is that if Zach LaVine was getting that money somewhere else where he's clearly the number 1 guy, that's one thing. But I just, again, take this at face value. How much different is Zach LaVine than DeMar DeRozan? How much different are they?
For me, those two, I mean, you brought DeMar DeRozan in, and he automatically slots in as just a guy that he's the guy. He's the guy. Like, I mean, he's the big name. I mean, you're looking at that. I get Zach LaVine Zach LaVine's dealt with injuries and things along those lines. DeMar DeRozan's always there, always. I mean, we saw how he almost carried this team, put it on his back, and it's just the DeMar DeRozan show. He was putting his name in the MVP candidacy last year, and he had he didn't have any reason being in there with like some of those top names, but people were mentioning his name, and that's just, he's the guy. So the fact that Zach LaVine is a $200 million player for this team, I kind of agree with you. I think, Devin Booker, obviously he's the big name on the Suns. They've made it far. He's earned a lot of what that Supermax extension entails. Bradley Beal's an interesting one in the sense that I feel like he could have, and I don't know why. We always, especially in Denver, this is a bad, and like, bear with me. Denver, we've always had a loyalty problem. And
you talking about the Nuggets?
Yeah. Denver Nuggets have always had a loyalty problem with guys trying to jet out of town. You want to talk about New Orleans?
Who are we talking about? Who are we talking about in Denver that's gotten out of town?
So, I mean, first of all, we've had Carmelo, who, he had his whole contract here, so I get that.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, but then, he dips out. Or, we have some bigger names that, have kind of strolled through town that have they just don't stay very long. And there's not that they want to go to a bigger team, bigger franchise.
Bigger market.
Yeah. And I think Bradley Beal, missed an opportunity. Now, as much as I want like the loyal players, I think guys like Bradley Beal, guys like Damian Lillard missed opportunities and got paid. They got paid, but they missed opportunities to maybe go and win a championship. Because is Bradley Beal gonna, on his $200 million contract, gonna win a championship with the Washington Wizards?
Well, here's the thing, though, Chris. Especially with, I think this is true in basketball more so than any other sport, where you can see fortunes change in a basketball franchise much quicker.
True.
Than you can in any other sport, because all it takes is, and this happens all the time, all it takes is that 1 or 2, max contract players, and teams have figured it out now to where they can have multiple max contract players on their team. All it takes is a couple of those guys come into your franchise, or in the case of a Damian Lillard or a Bradley Beal. Imagine Kevin Durant playing with Bradley Beal in Washington. Or imagine, I don't know, throw another name out there like a Luka Doncic, playing in another franchise elsewhere with one of the other guys that we mentioned, with Karl Anthony Towns. All of a sudden, you're talking about a team that is competing for a championship and potentially winning a championship. I mean, don't forget, we've seen this with LeBron going to the Lakers and almost immediately winning a championship.
Yep.
We saw it with Kawhi Leonard going to the Raptors and immediately winning a championship. We saw it with Durant when he went over to Golden State. They were already great, but immediately winning a championship. Now, granted, you could just as easily point to other instances where it didn't work, But in a lot of cases, it has worked. We've seen guys go and pair up with other superstars. So, like you said, I'm a big fan of the loyalty thing. Listen, I've been a Houston fan my whole life. And in Houston, the names that you talk about as far as all-time greats in Houston, the first name that always comes up, or should, is Akeem Olajuwon, because he was the first guy to bring a championship to Houston. Yeah, he played one bullshit season with Toronto at the end of his career, but pretty much his entire career with the Rockets. You talk about the Astros, you're talking about the Killer Bees, Craig Biggio, Jeff Bagwell. Both of those guys played their entire careers with the Astros. In football, you're talking about like an Earl Campbell and a Warren Moon, who spent the overwhelming majority of their careers at home with Houston. So, I like these guys sticking where they are, and I don't really feel like, I understand what you're saying, where they've missed an opportunity to go and pair up with somebody else. By the same token, you could just as easily say, maybe them staying put where they are give somebody else the opportunity to come and join them. And that's, it happens year after year after year. We see these guys get traded. We see these guys move to new franchises. Who would have thought that a guy like a James Harden, who was putting up 37 points a game, just like a season and a half later would be with a different franchise? Or that Kevin Durant would bounce around as much as he has, or LeBron James.
He's a whole nother thing. We had a whole thing on Kevin Durant and how his legacy has been affected. Go check our YouTube page. You can catch that, what we said on him. Jim on Sports, thank you so much for the raid. Let's go. Thank you, Jim, for sending us over some of your folks. Appreciate you. Hope you had a great stream. Let's get a shout out for Jim on Sports. Thank you. Welcome to the Action Lab. It is Speez and myself. I'm Chris. We are your hosts for tonight. Scotty's on vacation, so we have Speez sitting in. Go give Speez a follow if you are not doing so already. He is incredible. Him and Silky put on an amazing show. Thank you so much, Jim. Welcome in. We're doing some NBA talk for all you guys who are coming in, and we're going to be getting into some NFL Week 7 breakdowns for some of the top games very, very soon. So don't go anywhere. But I want to get to a couple things in the chat while we're here. And let's see where we at. So Destroy on Site says Towns does have that like leadership thing that kind of faded in the playoffs last year. He kind of just like disappeared and kind of had that weird attitude. He'll get better. I think he'll be fine. I don't put a lot of weight into that, but if I see that again like this postseason, it maybe is a red flag. I wouldn't be mad at Devin Booker getting 200 million, says Boofus. I would say Levine or Towns, both overpaid. Towns can be guarded by way too many players, be worth 200 million. He is consistent enough. He's not consistent enough. Anthony Edwards is their number one. I would disagree. They had to bring in Gobert to play defense and on bigs. I'm just not seeing that at all, says Destroy.
I don't know. I think Towns is a hell of a player. Again, big men that can stretch the floor are worth their weight in gold in this year in the current NBA. Because if you have a guy like Towns, who's a big that can pull one of the other big men away from the basket because he can shoot so well from the outside and create driving opportunities for guys like Anthony Edwards, I think that's, again, to me, that's, I'm looking at it within the context of today's NBA, and within the context of today's NBA, this, Chris, being a Denver fan, seeing what Jokic can do stretching the floor.
Oh, yeah.
A big man like Towns who can shoot from deep, who's got a good eye. He's a good passer. Yep. That's worth the money. That's worth the money as far as I'm concerned. And just real quickly, just to follow up on what I was saying before, the Bulls are paying DeMar DeRozan $27 million this year. They're paying Zach LaVine $37 million. DeMar gave him 28 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. Zach LaVine gave him 24.5 points, 4.5 rebounds, 4.5 assists. It's the same guy. It's essentially the same guy. So why are you giving $200 million to a guy to play the same position as somebody you already have who's one of the best in the game. I don't get it. I don't get it.
It's weird. It's weird. And so, yeah, we'll get to that division here in a quick minute. Quick somber note here. Former number 1 pick in the NFL draft, Charlie Trippy, passed at a century old. Hey, rip. That's it. Hey, he lived a good life. So, hey, big ups there. What's up, boys? Jim on Sports. How are you doing? We're doing fantastic. We are getting through some NBA preview and some NFL Week 7. So, thanks for swinging by, Jim. Hope you're having a good night, my friend. Hope your stream went well. Diacola Nuggets, Denver, 25 points for Joker, 8 for Murray, down 11 points. They're closing the gap a little bit. Is Murray still? He's healthy. He's fine. I saw someone said he left to the locker room. So
somebody said he went back to the locker room.
Unrelated, but I like how Scotty left for vacation after dropping out of top 5s in pick'ems. Oh, coincidence? I think not. I mean, I think there's a correlation there. Just saying. Let's get into the next division here. Let's go into my division, the Denver Nuggets, the Northwest Division. My boys are playing tonight. We're talking a little bit about them, and we got Minnesota. We were just talking about, so it's a perfect segue, right? We're gonna get into the Portland, Oklahoma City, and Utah. Let's just say Utah's a trash team. They're not going anywhere. They've traded literally everyone away. They have a rookie, the youngest head coach in the NBA, so they just have a lot that they need to get built back up, and they just aren't even close to doing anything. They traded away Gobert. They traded away Donovan Mitchell. So all of those, I mean, everybody on that team is gone, and they're starting from scratch. I mean, they have Kelly Olynyk, my Zag, my fellow. By the way, can I just say Kelly Olynyk has carved out the best situation. Like, is he the longest standing guy? Like, he is always on the team.
He was just on the Rockets not too long ago. He passed through in some deal, in the Harden deal, I think.
I'm like, he's been in the league for 100 years. He's got the best, like, he's got it made. How does, like, you got better guys in the, like, better players that fade out faster than Kelly Olynyk. And Kelly Olynyk, props to Kelly. He's a fellow Zag. But I'm guessing something happened in the baseball game.
Yes, Bader just struck out swinging. Astros 2 outs away from the. What am I doing? I need to turn the game on. I'm sitting here trying to look at stats while I'm talking to you. Yeah, I'll just keep the update here. Astros 2 outs away here.
Almost there. Closing it out. So Nuggets are minus 160 to win this division. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. We're not going to waste a lot of time here. Nuggets will win this division. It's
not even close.
It's not even close.
There's nobody. Again, Minnesota's got a good roster. They're a good team. They're a good middle of the pack team. You know, maybe Minnesota sneaks in there to like a 4 or 5 seed, but I kind of doubt it. Like, just off the top of my head, are they going to get ahead of Memphis, the Clippers, the Warriors? They're not better than any of those. The Nuggets. So there's 4 teams right there that they're not going to pass up. So they're in the bottom half of the playoffs in the West. They'll make the playoffs. I think it would be a major disappointment for them if they didn't make the playoffs. But I think they're in that 5 to 7 range at best. And maybe if we see injuries to another team and they tend to fall out, the more I think about it, they're probably closer to like the 7-8 seed like they were last year. I wouldn't be surprised at all to see them in the play-in. But yeah, and Portland's there. Portland's decent enough, but I mean, this should be a cakewalk for your Nuggets, man. I mean, I think they're as heavy a favorite in that division as there is a favorite in any division in basketball. I think they walk away with the Northwest, no question.
Yeah, I think a lot of the other divisions are pretty close, whereas this one, I mean, I think the top team, Denver's minus 160. The next team is plus 155. So realistically, and Minnesota, I think Minnesota's an interesting team. I know we have Joker in the chat. He's a big Minnesota guy. Jim on Sports talking about the Knicks. I'll talk about the Knicks here in a little bit. Brunson with 15. I have some thoughts on Brunson too, but I think he's good. But we'll talk about Brunson here in a little bit. But I think Minnesota is going to be good circumstantially. Different circumstances will help them when they play against teams like we talked about Memphis Grizzlies being a good team. They're a slashing team. They get in the paint. They try to get, those buckets. They can hit threes, but they're a cutting team, moving team, get in the paint, get points. I think that's where Minnesota's going to thrive because they got those two bigs. They got Kyle Anthony Towns. They got Rudy Gobert. They got some bigs that can, take care of some of those teams. My problem with Minnesota is when they start playing teams like Golden State, like Denver, like
Gobert is a liability, man.
He's a liability.
I mean, Astros win. Let's go.
There you go.
Astros win it, baby. 4-2 over the Yankees in the juice box. Minute Maid.
Woo.
The Astros are still your daddy's Yankee fans. It's beautiful. 17 strikeouts for this pitching staff. I know New York is coming off an emotional series against Cleveland, but you got to win these home games. It's good for the Astros. Verlander was back on track. A very nice effort. And we'll stop talking baseball now, but it was very good. Listen, but back to my point. Gobert has shown in the playoffs that he is a liability out there on defense because this is not the NBA that I grew up watching in the 90s, where you had the Olajuwons and you had the Ewings and the David Robinsons and the Rick Smiths, and I could go on and on and on about all the great centers that played. You don't have back-to-the-basket centers in basketball anymore, and those are the guys that Rudy Gobert can defend. He can't defend anybody on Golden State. Who the hell is he going to defend out there? And that's where, again, you talk about a guy, fortunately for him, he plays on the same team as this guy, but that's why a guy like a Karl Anthony Towns that can step out and hit a three is so useful, especially against the team that has a guy like a Rudy Gobert, because Gobert can do nothing. And he's making $38 million. It's absurd, the contract that they gave to Rudy Gobert. He's a good defensive player that's going to put up some really good numbers during the regular season, but in the playoffs, he's a liability. You get him in there against really good teams that can stretch the floor, and you can't keep him out there because he's going to get abused.
Yeah.
No, your Nuggets are going to walk away with this division, no question. It shouldn't even be close.
I think I like their chances, and the Nuggets. We've talked a lot about them. I mean, I've said this is a top 2 to 3 team in the West. If Murray, who Diacola says is still playing, so that's good. I love that. By the way, she also says, Speez, I'm rooting for the Yankees for my father-in-law because he was a big Yankees fan.
That's okay. I mean, it's family. I get it.
Which is it was my grandfather, Diacola's mama bear. So, but he would be rolling in his grave knowing that I'm more of a Mets fan than a Yankees fan. So that's just all things aside. But yeah, so Denver Nuggets, Jokic will win you 47 games by himself. We saw that last year.
Pretty much. And you add Jamal Murray back into the mix.
Add Jamal Murray, you add Michael Porter Jr., who, if all 3 of those guys, plus you have some nice young talent. I love the most underrated moves we're getting, Bruce Brown and KCP in this mix. And Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. So you have to, those are very under the radar moves for the Denver Nuggets in a sense that they never defended the 3-point line very well. They've always had struggles with that toughness defensively with shooters on the other side of the ball. And this helps them a lot. But they're also offensive pieces where they can make something happen. We saw this a lot with Bruce Brown with the Nets last year, cutting to the basket in the playoffs, and Durant was feeding him all night long, and he was just getting point after point after point. And it was just like, okay, we have a little bit of a dynamic that we've never had before, which is why I think the Nuggets have a really good chance to make it really far into this Western Conference playoffs, if not represent the West. Shaq picked us to win the West on TNT last night. Thanks, Shaq. Appreciate that.
There you go.
But yeah, so I mean, looking at the other divisions, the teams in this division, Trailblazers, they got Dame, they got and a handful of guys that they've got Dame. They got Dame. That's pretty much it.
Hard stuff.
And then Oklahoma City Thunder, they got my boy Chet from Gonzaga, but he's out. Oh my goodness.
Do you actually like that kid?
I don't hate him. I think so. When we were talking about the draft, I think he has one of the highest ceilings of anyone in the draft. But he has the most questions. But he has the most questions. Like, can he hold up? And I think, the kid coming out next year, Wumbayaba or whatever it is. I'm gonna get another mispronunciation in the chat. I think he's better than Chet by far. It's not even close.
Yeah, no question. Have you seen the highlights of this kid?
Oh, this kid is insane.
It's just sick, man. Yeah, he's unbelievable.
So,
Chet to me is Sean Bradley 2.0. I think that kid's gonna flop enormously.
I think he'll surprise you a little bit because he has some passing ability and he can hit threes, and that's today's NBA. He fits in today's NBA. Like, he's not banging down low anymore. That's not today's NBA. He's not going to be mixing it up as often. He's going to be kind of, doing some other. Will that be a thing when he does mix it up with some of those guys like Embiid or somebody else? Yeah, it'll be an issue. But until then, he's out for a year. He got his injury, but I think, interestingly enough, Oklahoma City has so much good talent. I don't know how they keep it all and how they can pay it all down the line. It's crazy. Like, they have so many good players, but I don't know. I think Chet, he has a high ceiling, but he has the most questions. That's all I'll say about
When's he healthy? I know he's jacked up. Is he out for the year? How long is he out?
Oh, he's out. He has I think it was a Liz Frank, if I'm not mistaken, and he's out for the whole season. Yeah, he's done.
Is he? Okay. Yeah. I'm looking at that roster, and again, I look at salaries to go along with these guys. Dort's making $15 million. That I don't know. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is making $30 million. Like, really? I get it. He's a young kid. All right. He's
Giddey's exciting to watch, for sure. He's a young kid, that does it. He's like a mini Jokic in a sense that he like gets everyone involved. He's kind of like, he can make shots. He can do a little bit of everything, but he's like, on a lower scale, obviously.
Yeah, and they're not paying a lot. That's the only two guys on their team that they have that are making over $10 million a season.
But again, if all these draft picks pay off, they're gonna have to pay. They can't pay everybody, so they have all these top guys, the top draft picks, and they keep having these top draft picks. But eventually, you're gonna have to start paying some of them, and you got to say goodbye to some of them because you can't afford to keep them all. But that was a thing that Charles Barkley said last year. He's like, "Oh yeah, I love the fact that they're getting all these top young guys, but eventually they're going to need to get paid, and you can't pay everybody."
I was thinking of somebody else when I saw Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, because now I'm looking at his numbers. I was thinking of who's that turd that Jordan picked when he was with the Bobcats. Had a hyphenated last name as well. For some reason, that guy's face popped in for me. But I'm looking at this kid. This is the kind of kid that I like to see. And he's the anti. Oh, hold on. We got bits.
Yeah. Oh, those injuries not good. Just ask Greg Oden. Yeah. No, Greg Oden is kind of the poster child for top draft pick.
This Frank's gone bad. Yeah. But listen to this. Listen to this stat line for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander from a year ago. On 23 points a game, he was a 50, 40, 80 guy. 50% from the floor, 41% from three, and 80% from the free throw line. That's tremendous. So I take back what I said, because again, I was thinking of that guy whose name is going to come to me, Michael
Olowokandi?
No. Some guy from the Bobcats. It's killing me. I can't remember. Michael Kidd-Gilchrist.
There you go.
That's who it was. I was like, why are they paying that guy all that money? That's why it came to me. No, this kid, that's some serious numbers. And he's got size. He's a 6'6" point guard. So you have to like that. I just think, man, as a Rockets fan sitting there at number 3 this year, Orlando surprised us by taking Paolo Banchero number 1.
That was a shock.
I really thought he was going to slide to the Rockets at 3, and I was going to be thrilled. But I'll be honest with you, I wasn't unhappy with the consolation prize, because Jabari Smith is a kid that plays on both ends of the court.
Yeah.
And they went and got Tari Eason from LSU, who's another stout defender. I love the young guys that the Rockets are building around. But yeah,
So
I was praying that Oklahoma City took Chet, because I was like, I do not want anything to do with that kid. I don't buy it. I just don't buy it.
Let's see what else.
I could be wrong.
Did you just list Rick Smits as the fourth center in the same sentence as Hakeem, Ewing, and Robinson?
Okay, I blanked on other centers who were good at that time. Obviously, because Hakeem beat Ewing in the finals. Shaq was just coming into the league at the time, so I guess you want to put Shaq in there. And then I had David Robinson, because we always played him. Utah didn't have. I'm blanking on who the other good centers were at that time. He was kind of, end of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and those guys, and beginning of Shaq and those guys. So but it was like Rick Smits was a 2010 guy. Don't you dare besmirch the great name of the dunking Dutchman, Rick Smits.
Roger.
Babe. Shaq was just getting into the league. He was a youngster. He got swept by Dream in the finals and never recovered from that.
Shaq predicting that is worth a Shaq shimmy. Go give, first of all, give us a Shaq shimmy with a follow, and go give Speez and Benchmark a Shaq shimmy with a follow as well. Go follow Speez every single Thursday and every single Sunday. He's doing a lot of NFL stuff, so make sure go give him some love. You won't regret it, and it's the best.
So
it's the best
mean.
content. Speez, I entirely agree with you on Chet, says Boofus. Those injuries not good. Ask Gergoda. Yeah, we got that. Kid Gilchrist. Chet Holmgren is a toothpick compared to Oden. True, but he's got more skill than Greg Oden, in my opinion, when it comes to shooting the ball and being a passer and doing. He has more dynamics than Greg Oden. But that was a different age, though. That was a different time. Shaq was early mid 90s. Smith's is more 80s and early 90s.
Smits was 90s. Remember that 98 Indiana Pacers team that should have beat the Bulls in the Eastern Conference Finals? They took the Bulls to 7, and they probably should have beaten the Bulls that year. They got a few bad calls around. So, man, that was Smits, baby. I'm looking at. I'm trying to go to my leaderboards for the for the 90s there, so that I can see who else I was forgetting that was a great center.
Let's see. While you're doing that, Redeem, don't say anything else. So say something mean about the Raptors. Well, let's talk about that division here next. Let's get into that division, but we'll say something mean about the Raptors. I feel like the Raptors made a mistake in not moving Fred VanVleet. Is that a hot take? It might be a hot take. I mean, I'm not I don't see what everyone else sees in Fred VanVleet. He's in the same category for me as the Brunson, who went to New York. I think he'll be fine. I think he gets more hype than he's worth, and he's like your number one guy. And I don't see. I think the Raptors will be good, but I think you should have probably done something with Fred VanVleet when you had a chance, when all of the trade rumors were happening at the end of last year, and you missed an opportunity. Toronto.
Yeah, I mean, if we're saying something mean about Toronto, I mean, they're in Canada. Hard stop.
Roger,
I think Canada's great.
No, we love Canada. Love you, Canada.
No, Fred VanVleet, I don't have a problem with them giving him that money. I mean, he's a scrappy guy. I was a short, skinny kid when I played high school basketball, so I had to be a scrappy guy. So, I have a soft spot for scrappy players like Fred VanVleet. I really like the guy. I think he averaged 20 points a game last year. I mean, he's not some scrub. They just don't have enough outside of VanVleet right now. Pascal Siakam is a really good ball player. He's not a number one guy. In my opinion, at least. I mean, maybe I'm selling him short. I don't think he's a number one guy. So, we'll see. Stranger things have happened, but I'm not exactly expecting huge things.
Destroy on site. Thank you for gifting out a sub to Lazy Dumper. Appreciate that so much. Thank you, Destroy. Love that. Thank you. Thank you for your generosity. Real quick, I saw something in the chat that made me stop for a second. I had to Google. Morning Matumbo says do babe, and I'm like,
yes, Alonzo Mourning. Yes. Yeah. That's a great pick. Mutombo, not so much. Well, I mean, Mutombo was tough to go against defensively because he was amazing. I mean, one of the great defensive centers of all time. Offensively, he was kind of a dumpster fire. I mean, let's be honest.
And then prayers out to Dikembe for that brain tumor they found. So, hopefully.
Now I feel like an asshole for bringing up the fact that he was terrible offensively. Of course, I don't wish ill health on the guy. It's just he wasn't exactly the most polished offensive center. He'd be the first to tell you that. He'd say, no, I was too busy playing defense.
Let's go!
Let's see what else. As a Cincy resident, is the most NBA talk I've listened to this century. Enjoyed it, but tired from flying home from Dallas today. Have a great. Thank you, Dubabe, for being here.
Dubabe, always good to see you, man.
Hey, Dubabe, we're gonna finish out. We're gonna breeze through these last couple divisions, and then also we're gonna upload all of our VOD to YouTube on our channel. So make sure you go check it out. You can catch your boy Speez on our YouTube channel. Go do it. We'll have all of these broken out into smaller videos so you can catch up and skip through as much as you want. That goes for everybody who has to leave and it's going to be a late night. So thank you so much, and appreciate you for joining in. So thank you. And again, there's the link for Speez and Benchmark in the chat. Go give them a follow.
Appreciate that very much. So we were talking about the Atlantic Division, were we not?
Let's dive into Atlantic Division here. So the Atlantic Division, when we're talking about the favorites, Boston Celtics, obviously the favorites here. Now they have had some coaching controversies. Obviously, they don't have their head coach that took them through the playoffs last year and made their rookie coaching debut. Because
hold that thought real quick, Wags. Listen closely, Wags. I'm not berating Alonzo Mourning's offense. I was berating Dikembe Mutombo's offense. Did I misspeak and say Alonzo Mourning? Because if I did, then that was my fault. But I'm pretty sure you misheard me. No, Dikembe Mutombo's offense, terrible.
Yeah.
Alonzo Mourning, very good offensively, no question about it. Very good on both ends of the floor. Dikembe Mutombo, not so much. Sorry, I saw that in the chat, and I couldn't let that egregious misrepresentation slide.
I mean...
True.
Yeah. Gotta answer back. Slap back on that. I thought you were talking about Mourning. No. So Boston having that coaching controversy with all the sexual misconduct and he's sleeping with the owner, one of the partial owner's wives, and more. Even crazy.
Is that a controversy though? I'm being serious. I'm not trying to be an asshole. Because we talked about this on our show, and I really think that as a society, I saw this on Bill Maher's show, which I'm not a big Bill Maher fan, and we don't talk politics on our show, and I'm assuming you don't on yours either, so I'm not going to get into the political implications of this. But Bill Maher brought up what I thought was an excellent point. We talk about in society today how lonely people are. How there's a loneliness epidemic in our society. There's so much more depression and all that other kind of shit. And people talk about how hard it is to meet somebody. And people are relying on things like online dating and Tinder and all that other kind of shit. Where are people more likely to meet someone that they could potentially connect with than at work? And I think it wouldn't be an altogether bad thing to kind of reevaluate this whole relationship at work is an awful thing and we're automatically going to suspend people. No, I get it. With the Celtics coach, he's married and he's having an affair. So I get that from that person. I'm not talking about him in particular, but this idea that that somehow all work relationships are off limits. I don't know. It just seems like if two consenting adults are having a physical relationship with one another, is that really the business of the organization or that particular company? Am I just completely off base here and out of my mind, or is this something that it just felt a little weird to me? It felt kind of strange. That's all.
I think because it was an owner's wife, maybe there's some things that extend to some
but even at that point, that if you're saying that they suspended him simply because it was one of the owner's wives and the owner has the authority to suspend him, to me that's even worse, because again, what's the knock on workplace relationships? It's power imbalance, right? They especially have a problem with somebody who's lower on the totem pole, sleeps with somebody who's higher on the totem pole, because this person up here can technically exert some kind of power or influence over what happens to this person down here.
Yeah.
Well, if it's the owner then, who's above everybody, who's suspending the dude, to me that makes it even more like egregious. You know, it's just, I don't know. I know we're getting sidetracked here, but I think the 1 year suspension for a guy having a consensual relationship with somebody within the organization, to me, that's a lot, man. I mean, I didn't agree with the decision personally. I think he got a bad rap. Obviously, if there's more to this story that we don't know,
I think there is.
It was a situation where maybe he was using his influence to, coerce this girl into this relationship. Then that's 100% different. And what I'm saying here does not apply to that. But I mean, don't you think? I want to say, don't you think they should tell us? But really, I mean, the whole thing to me is kind of not something that the public needs to know about. I mean, I don't know, man. It's really odd.
I just think if you're gonna move on. I mean, I think it's just like shit or get off the pot. Like, don't like.
That's what Wag says in the chat. Yeah, just fire him if that's what you want to do.
Yeah, like you just make it so it's like if you're gonna suspend him for a year and he might come back, he might not. It's like, well, at that point, just like move on from him. And then we've got all these other reports that say, like, other people who are close to the situation say, oh, it's a lot worse than what people think. It's widespread. It's a whole thing. Like, so that being said, they're still picked to win the division.
Somehow.
So the Celtics still have a good team. I think they'll be good. The Brooklyn Nets are an interesting one, though, because the Brooklyn Nets in this division, Atlantic Division, are very interesting in the sense that if Ben Simmons pans out to be a good player for them, I think they're the favorites to win this division. And that's, I mean, because you got all the crazy offseason stuff with Kevin Durant and then Kyrie Irving, all the stuff from last year with the vaccination stuff, but he's back in the fold. And then you have, like, there's a lot of things, but there's too much talent on that team for them not to be successful, especially with Ben Simmons if he pans out. So Brooklyn kind of but this is a stacked division because you got the Philadelphia 76ers right behind them at plus 280.
Early spoiler alert, Philly's my pick to win it all this year. I think Philly goes all the way. I think that team finally figures out a way to put it together. What you're saying about Brooklyn is absolutely right. I mean, they've still got Seth Curry, who's one of the best shooters in the league. He's a rock solid number 2. He's your 2 guard out there. He's going to be really good. Joe Harris, we've seen one of the great 3-point shooters in all of basketball, but he can go kind of cold from time to time. We saw that in the playoffs a couple years ago. I agree with you. I have no confidence whatsoever in that team staying healthy. I mean, I just don't. For me, it's just whether it be staying healthy or Kyrie Irving doing something stupid that forces him to miss games, or he just flat out decides to not. I think that team severely lacks leadership, and I think that showed last year, and I think it's going to show again this year. I don't think there's somebody, because say all you want about Kevin Durant as a basketball player. He's one of the 2 or 3 best basketball players on the planet today, in my opinion. He is not a team leader. He's just not. No. He doesn't have the maturity for it.
Nope.
It's not his thing. And obviously Kyrie, there's just too much peripheral shit going on there. And I just don't think that team, number 1, is going to be healthy from the start of the season to the end. I think there's going to be some kind of drama that comes in there and derails them. And look, the guy that we're talking about, that you're talking about, potentially being the difference maker, Ben Simmons, it's a head case himself. I mean, this is another guy. Yeah. You've taken another guy who's a big problem and thrown him onto a team that already has problems. So no, I think that's a disaster waiting to happen. I'm avoiding the Nets like kryptonite this year. I've fallen for that trap before.
Yep.
When it was Kyrie and Harden and Durant. I'm not falling for it again. I do not like the Nets for an entire NBA season. I can't for the life of me imagine how they are betting favorites over the Sixers in that division.
Man,
that's just madness to me.
I look at the Sixers roster though. So I mean, look at this. Yesterday, their debut, James Harden had 35 points to lead the team. If you get James Harden back to what he was,
I'm telling you.
So 35 points, 12 for 12 from the free throw line, because he gets to the free throw line a million times a game. Don't worry, Embiid does too. I mean, he only got to the line 9 times. I was shocked by that. That was I would have taken the over on 15 if I could. But so Harden, just 35 points, 12 for 12 from the free throw line, 5 from 9 from 3. Maxey, 21 points. Embiid, 26 points, 15 rebounds. And then you have Tobias Harris. Tobias Harris he's a dog. He gets in there.
He's a solid fourth guy.
He's a solid guy. Then you get guys on the bench. You got dogs like Montrezl Harrell and Thibault and
I love Montrezl Harrell. I was so sad when he left the Rockets. I love that kid.
And you got some PJ Tucker action, some defensive presence there, some rebounding, he can bring it from that standpoint. So I like a lot. I think the Philadelphia 76ers, I agree with you. I think they're going to be in the mix to win this division as well. I honestly kind of like them over Boston right now, even though Boston beat them in game 1. So interesting. But let's get to the chat real quick, and I'll give my pick for this one, and then we'll move on to the next one. And then we got to get to NFL, so we'll kind of breeze through the next couple divisions here and get to the NFL Week 7. So I think there's just more that can go wrong with long-term than right with workplace relationships, not accounting for power dynamic issues.
That's fair.
Says casually. If you are the owner and one of your employees is sleeping with your wife, are you not firing him? And there's a power thing that what you said, right? There's a power thing with that, but like there are some things that it's like, it's behind closed doors, so you got to balance that too. That's just my opinion though, says casually. Booster Boofus, I agree with you again. I had Philly to win it all. Also, you have Philly winning it all in the East, and then you have the Nuggets winning it all in the whole thing, right? That's what you guys really mean. Looks like the Nuggets are losing this one down 15. It's fine. Like I said, just get some bitter competition in here, and then we'll compete a little bit better. So for this division, let me go back to this real quick. I'm kind of, you know what? I'm gonna go with you guys. I'm going to take Philly to win this division.
Yeah, I'm going with the Sixers. And one other very, very quick note, and I'll try to make it short because I know we're trying to move on. I think this is one of my hot takes for the season. I think that Tyrese Maxey is this year's Kawhi Leonard. I'm going to tell you what I mean. If you recall, when Kawhi Leonard was with the Spurs, that was not Kawhi Leonard's team, not by a long shot.
No,
that was Tim Duncan's team. Manu Ginobili was there. Tony Parker was there. Okay, but when you get into the finals, it was Kawhi Leonard the one that won the Finals MVP, and then of course he goes on. He leaves San Antonio, goes on to be the number 1 guy and be an all-star and be win another title with Toronto and so on and so forth. The rest is history. I think to me, and they're not the same player. Okay. But to me, Tyrese Maxey is that caliber of player. I think that this is going to be the season where Tyrese Maxey shows that when he is the guy, and let's face it, he's still 3rd in the pecking order right now, at least on that Philadelphia team behind Embiid and Harden. To me, Tyrese Maxey is going to be like Kawhi Leonard was for the Spurs in that championship run. He's going to be a guy that is going to show you this year that he can be a number 1 on somebody else's team. And that, coupled with the play of Embiid and Harden, is what's going to put the Sixers over the top, in my opinion. That's my hot take. I think Tyrese Maxey explodes this year. And I think he's going to have a phenomenal season. And I think that if he doesn't stay in Philly, wherever he goes, he's going to go somewhere where he is the number one guy. And I watch out for Tyrese Maxey. That's all I'm going to say. He is my sleeper pick to have a breakout season and just be absolutely phenomenal for the Sixers this year.
Last thing about this division, I think we have some people saying C's all the way. C's the Celtics, all Celtics, Philly, Nets says destroy on site. Y'all are crazy, saying it's all about the Celtics. I will say Tatum better have learned some things from last year, because he melted down when it mattered at the very end of that series, and he was non-existent. Go ask Boston fans how they feel about his performance in that last series. Because
I mean, if you're going to melt down, the finals is the place to melt down, right?
Yeah, it is. But
you don't want to ever melt down, but by the same token, at least he got him that far. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, so I think he will learn from that. So I'm not saying I think Tatum's a top player in this league. He's a top 10 guy. I just think that, if he learns from what how to be assertive in those series, I think that they'll be better. Jaylen Brown put up 35 yesterday too to match Tatum against Philadelphia, which I think that's going to be potentially an Eastern Conference Finals, when it comes down to the end of the season. But, I think there's some. For me, Boston has some depth issues outside of their starting lineup. They have a great starting lineup. I think their depth issues they have Blake Griffin, Vonleh, and Hauser. Brogdon was a good pickup. I like Brogdon. But outside of that, I don't know. Cornet, Jackson, they got some okay pieces. I think that maybe they struggle a little bit when their starting lineup goes out, but still they have old man Horford in the center. He's not going to be able to give you what you need from him. And I think that, when you're down to it in a playoff series and you're going up against Embiid or some of these other big centers in the league, it's going to be a little tougher for him. So that's my only thing with the Celtics, but I do like the higher ceiling of the Philadelphia 76ers. Let's move on to the Central Division. You got the Milwaukee Bucks, Cleveland Cavaliers, Bulls, Pistons, and Pacers. Pacers and Pistons. I think Pistons are working their way up. They're kind of like some of these other young teams. They're not close, but they're working their way up the right way through the draft. They got a lot of young talent for Detroit. I think there's a lot of things you should be excited about. Pacers, they're kind of rebuilding mode. Bulls, underachieving from last year. We thought they were going to be better, and then they didn't end up being that. Cavaliers made some big moves to get Donovan Mitchell into the fold, which I think that's going to help them a ton. They're going to be a slow mesh. They're going to get together, and then I think Milwaukee is still the cream of the crop. I have them winning this division. Yeah,
I think it's Milwaukee and then everybody else.
Yep.
Again, the Donovan Mitchell pickup was really good for the Cavs. And that was a team, let's face it, they came out of nowhere last year. I mean, nobody had the Cavs being a top 5 team in the East, for crying out loud. I mean, that was insane. They still got Darius Garland, obviously, there. Pair him with Donovan Mitchell, and that's as good a backcourt as there is in basketball. I mean, that's a really, really rock solid backcourt. I like that team. Again, it's one of those where it's kind of like, did they catch lightning in a bottle last season and they're going to come back down to earth this season? They do have a nice mix of, some veterans in there. We mentioned Kevin Love earlier. He's still there. Got like a Karis LeVert who's there. He's been around for a little while. So, I mean, I like the mix in Cleveland, but I mean, Milwaukee's the class of that division, if not, the entire Eastern Conference. They're tremendous. Chris Middleton, when he was a free agent a couple of years ago and Harden was still with the Rockets, I was praying that the Rockets would find a way to sign him, and he re-signed with Milwaukee. I think Chris Middleton is one of the most underrated players in all of basketball. He is so good, particularly with his passing. I mean, he is a tremendous passer. I love that Milwaukee team. I think they're awesome. I picked them to win it again last year. And honestly, they'll be right in the mix again this year. So yeah, Chicago again. I don't have enough faith in Lonzo Ball as my number 3 guy. But the 1-2 punch of DeRozan and Zach LaVine is really nice. But yeah, it's Milwaukee, and I think it's a pretty steep drop off after that as far as the division goes.
Yeah. Did you see the bench press of the Jazz tonight? Wow. Yeah. I haven't looked at the box score yet, but I'll look at it here in a little bit. They did better than their starters for sure. Boston, Milwaukee, rest of the East, says Double Doc. And Destroy on Site's like he's agreeing. Yeah. I mean, I think Milwaukee is definitely, we're talking about Milwaukee in this division right now. I have them winning the division. And I think that you have the best player in the world. Antetokounmpo arguably is the best player in the world. And he does. You can't game plan for the guy like that. So
no. Your Nuggets got blown out by 20 by the freaking Jazz. Yeah, Chris,
it's because,
what are we doing?
It's because we were like huge favorites, and I saw this coming. There was actually a lot of bets online that were like, take Nuggets plus or -8, take -7.5, and I'm like, I'm not touching that bet with a 10-foot pole. And
you shot 8% from the floor and lost by 20.
That's why. Don't trust the Nuggets early in the season. I'll tell you that they'll finish in the top 3. I guarantee it. I
guess not. Well, here's why: they shot 5 of 22 from 3, and freaking Utah shot 16 of 38 from 3. So that'll do it.
Yeah. Milwaukee, Cavs, Bulls, says Destroy. Okay, all right. I like all that. Keep throwing your predictions out there.
I like that as well. I would agree with that.
So let's get on to let's go. We got one more division, the East. We'll breeze through the Southeast division. Miami, Atlanta Hawks, Charlotte Hornets, Washington Wizards, Orlando Magic. Miami is the favorite to come out of this one. Atlanta's second. This is arguably one of my least favorite divisions, and
this division sucks. I hate this division.
It's not great. I think there's nothing exciting. Miami should come Butler,
out. I like Trae Young, but yeah, I it should be Miami. I'm with you.
It's Miami or nothing if I'm betting on this one. And Atlanta could be sneaky, but they've choked for me a little bit too much when it comes down. Like Atlanta had a lot of hype the last season and a half of this is Trae Young's year. This is their year. I mean, they did make some moves. DeJounte Murray's there. So I like that
DeJounte Murray is a big pickup.
He's a big pickup. So I do like that. I just think they still are playing second fiddle to a Miami Heat team who's well coached, and they have a lot of good talent on that Miami Heat team.
You know what? I forgot about DeJounte Murray going there. Now that I think about it, and I'm looking at their roster right here in front of me, I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to take the Hawks in this division.
Ooh, okay.
Trae Young, Bogdanovich at the 2. John Collins is your power forward. You've got Murray. Murray's a 2-3. And Clint Capella, who came up. That's a formidable starting 5. Now, depth is where they're gonna feel it. They're not a particularly deep team. But I'm going to go with Miami here. I like this. I like that DeJounte Murray pickup. I think that's huge. And the fact that they didn't have to give up John Collins, or did they get him in a trade, or did they get him? They got him in a trade, did they not?
I believe so. Yeah, trade.
I think they did. Yeah, they gave up a bunch of draft picks for him. I really like that starting 5. That's a really, really solid starting 5. And again, I couldn't tell you who the hell most of these guys coming off their bench are. So I know that there's that. But as far as that starting 5 goes, I think that might be enough to get them first place in this division. I'm going to go with the Hawks, man. I'm going the Hawks into surprise.
Atlanta is one of my playoff teams, and I do have them winning a potential first round matchup with whoever they play early on. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if they may. It's going to be close to win the division because Miami is always good and always in there. But I do think they make a little bit of a run to the second round of the playoffs. Just about the beginning of the game, announcer said, "Well, Jazz are scoring report. Jazz read the scouting report. Last 8 points came from going directly at MPJ. Oh, poor MPJ.
There you go.
He needs to work on his defense.
Have we been on for 2 hours already?
Yeah. Is
My
that?
God, Speez, shut up and quit talking. All right. All right.
No, we're good. We're good. Yeah, unless if you got to hop off, No,
I'm great. I just I feel bad for putting the people through this much of my nonsense.
No, I think everyone's. Are you guys digging the NBA talk? Are you guys having a good time enjoying like what we're putting out here? If so, let us know. I've contemplated putting out an NBA show that we maybe need to put together, Speez. Maybe you and I could put together a little NBA show another day of the week. But otherwise, let's get to the last division here in this one. So I picked Miami, you picked Atlanta in that last one. Last one is the Pacific Division. This is the Clippers, the Warriors, the Suns, the Lakers, and the Kings. Now, the Kings are one of those teams that I like a lot. So, you got I'm a big Zags guy, so you got some Zags on that team. Oh, by the way, Wizards, we just went over the Southeast Division. Wizards have like 5 Gonzaga players. I'm a big Gonzaga guy. It's just
so
what it
mean.
is. But I will say...
Is Mark Few still at Gonzaga?
He is.
Dude, I went to a coaching clinic and Mark Few was there, and I was totally mesmerized by that guy. He is such a phenomenal coach.
He's so good. He
was all about fundamentals. Mark Few was there. Rick Majerus was there. Rest in peace. Jim Boeheim was there. Michigan State. Why am I blanking on his name? Fucking Michigan State's head coach. Anyway, Michigan State's head coach was there. Gino Auriemma. I was blown away by Mark Few. Love that guy. Anyway, sorry. Sidetracking.
No, you're good. Let's just say it like it is. Phoenix Suns made it far last year, but they're third in this division to come away with it, behind Golden State, rightfully so, and the Clippers, who have made some moves to try to solidify, but there's some questions with the Clippers. People, of course, everyone jumps on the Clippers because they're the sweethearts and they have Ty Lue as their coach, and everyone's saying Ty Lue is the best coach ever. And I'm like, first of all, what has Ty Lue done outside of having like LeBron James on his team?
Yes, exactly.
And
that's madness.
When people say Ty Lue is the best coach in the league, one of the best coaches in the league, I've heard it on ESPN. I've heard it on a couple, and I'm like, stop. Ty Lue is a product of who he was coaching, and that is LeBron James. That's it. So I'm not high on the Clippers as high as everyone else is. They're like, they're going to win it all. No, I like Golden State more than I do the Clippers in this division. And then I like maybe the Clippers to come behind them. Suns take a step back. They have some drama going on. DeAndre Ayton tried to get out. He wasn't happy. He came back in the fold because they matched the contract offer that was offered by, I can't remember who it was. It was another team. But so what's funny is I haven't even mentioned the Lakers yet, because they're not even worth mentioning in these conversations, because they might be a play-in team. Maybe. They don't have shooters.
Oh, they're definitely a play-in team at best.
They don't have shooters. This is what I said last year, by the way, too. Scotty and I on our show last year were like, Los Angeles isn't going to do anything. We had them as a play-in game and we overshot them. And let's just say we gave them too much credit, but now everyone's come back and they think they're trash. But what do you think about these teams here?
Well, I'll tell you, I like what the Clippers have done, but I've gone through fool's gold with the Clippers like I have with the Nets in the past, and I'm talking about going back to the Chris Paul, Blake Griffin days.
Those are the days.
When they were blowing 3-1 leads in the playoffs to the Rockets, when the Rockets were just not very good, and they still somehow managed to blow that. I don't know what it is about the Clippers, man, but they haven't been able to put it together. Kawhi Leonard hasn't been able to stay healthy. Between him and Paul George, it seems like one of them's always hurt. I like the addition of a guy like John Wall, although... where does John Wall fit in here? Is he coming off the bench? Are they going to put Reggie Jackson on the bench and start John Wall at the point guard? I don't know. But yeah, I think that's an overrated roster, to be honest with you. That's another team where your two best players kind of play the same position. With Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. They're both really good at it. Don't get me wrong, but I'm not picking against Golden State. No way am I picking the Clippers over Golden State. And I don't buy that Phoenix is going to have fallen off that much. Phoenix is really, really, really good. I think the Clippers are third place in this division. I put Golden State number 1. I still got Phoenix number 2. Even though, best record in basketball a year ago, did they not? Wasn't it Phoenix number 1 overall last year? They were great.
Pretty good.
And Yeah, and Golden State is still there. So, yeah, I'm taking Golden State number 1. I'll take the Suns number 2, and I got the Clippers as number 3. As far as the Lakers go, just real quick, I'm going to throw some teams out. You tell me better or worse than the Lakers. Warriors.
Better.
Clippers.
Better.
Suns.
Better.
Nuggets.
Better.
Grizzlies.
Better.
Mavericks.
Better.
Timberwolves.
Better. Yeah, they have young. Yeah, better.
Pelicans.
Better.
There's your 8 playoff teams in the West.
Yeah.
So what you got left in the West are the Lakers, the Blazers, the Kings, the Jazz, the Thunder, the Spurs, the Rockets. We can say the only other teams really that are going to be in that 8 to 10 range are the King. I mean, it's going to be the Lakers fighting it out with the likes of Sacramento and Portland just to make it into the play-in.
Which, by the way, I'm high on Sacramento as a weirdly enough, I think, I'm high on their over total. I think their over-under is kind of low. For the talent that they have on Sacramento, they have a lot of pieces there in this division, but they are picked last. Part of me wants to pick them to beat the Lakers out,
I'm telling
record-wise.
I'd be stunned if the Lakers finish higher than the play-in. If they somehow finish in the top 6 in a conference with the Warriors, Clippers, Suns, Mavs, Grizzlies, and Nuggets,
they're playing.
They're playing,
yeah.
And no, they're garbage.
I mean,
Warriors, Suns, and Clippers for me in the
game one. LeBron in the post conference, he's like, we don't have shooters. He's making excuses already. And it's one game into the season against the Golden State team. We're not even one game in, and he's already saying we don't have enough shooters on this team. We don't. Yeah. And that's a bad sign. If you're the Lakers team, it's you make those post conference you know what, we have some things to work on. We got to shoot better. We got to do this. We got to do that. When he says straight out, we don't have good enough shooters on this team. Yeah. That's a red flag, Lakers fans. Let's just put it like it is.
That's pretty bad.
That's a bad situation. No way Lakers finish higher than 8th or 9th at best. I'm right with you on that on Destroy. It's exactly that. So, all right. So that's what we have here. I have Golden State winning this division over the Clippers.
Okay. Yeah, I'm with you. I got Golden State number 1. And I'm taking Phoenix over the Clippers. I'm just not buying it with the Clippers.
So
I'm not there.
So there we go. So let's just break this down then. Who do you got in your Eastern Conference? Who do you got in your Western Conference? And then I'll do mine as well.
I'm going to go ahead and take Philadelphia out of the East. I think Harden steps back up. And I told you I think Maxey is a breakout player this season. And he solidifies himself as one of the best young talents in all of basketball. As far as getting to the finals,
so mean.
Man, it's a tough one in the West because I feel like they're really top heavy. But you know what? I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to take your Denver Nuggets, man.
Let's go.
I'm going to take your Denver Nuggets. I think if Jamal Murray stays healthy. We've seen what Jokic can do. I'm gonna go out on a limb here. It feels crazy picking this team, but I like Denver a lot. I really do like this Denver squad. I think Jokic is tried and true as one of the best. He's one of the best players in all of basketball. And getting Jamal Murray back is so huge for this team. I think when it comes right down to it and you get into the playoffs and you need a bucket late, you can count on a guy like Jokic to either hit that bucket or find somebody who's wide open that can do the same. So give me Philly and Denver in the finals. I can't go so far as to pick them in the finals, though. I think this is Philly's year. I think this is the year Harden finally gets over the hump. I'll take the 76ers over the Nuggets in the NBA Finals this year.
Okay. All right. It's hard for me to go against a Milwaukee Bucks team in the East. I think Milwaukee I think they might be going up against, maybe it's a Milwaukee and Philadelphia Eastern Conference Finals is what I'm thinking here, potentially. So maybe, and not to say anything bad about Boston. I think Boston is a great team. I just think they're going to be in they're going to be absolute game. There's going to be some great games in the Eastern Conference Finals. I think Milwaukee with one of the best players in the entire world finds a way. They've done it before with probably almost a similar, if not lesser roster before. So do I think that you just can't plan for Giannis? Yeah, it's tough. Middleton, you talked about Middleton a ton, but I think Milwaukee has a really good chance to make it back this year. I think Denver is my other team. Obviously, I'm a homer, but at the same time, I know this roster. I've watched it enough. We got one of the best players in the league. They arguably have one of the best starting lineups. Denver does in the NBA, and their depth just adds to that. We'll take away this first game, but
I was gonna say they just dumped by 20 to the Jazz,
blown out. But I still like them to come out of the West, which is crazy to me that they're behind Golden State, LA, Phoenix already in these bettings, the odds. However, I think the Nuggets, and I'm gonna go on a limb. I'll be a homer here. I got the Nuggets beating the Milwaukee Bucks in 6. All right, then.
I don't hate that. I don't hate either one of those picks. I think they're good picks. Listen, the Warriors are going to be a tough out as always. Phoenix is always a tough out. I say always. These last couple of seasons, they've been a tough out. Obviously, they've been very, very good. And for everybody else, look, it really comes down to staying healthy. And we've seen how quickly things can go south. Even in the playoffs. I mean, we saw it with the Grizzlies. They had such a tremendous regular season, and then just a freakish injury to Ja Morant. Next thing you know, your season's over.
A lot can change.
A lot can change, but yeah, man, I'm a big believer in strong rosters, top to bottom, and I think that that between Philly and Denver, those two rosters are just really well balanced top to bottom. They've got some players on the bench that can step in and make plays when the starters are out. And I'm confident in those picks. But we'll see what happens, man. But I don't hate either of your picks either. Obviously, I agree with you on Denver, but Milwaukee is a great pick as well. No question.
There you go. That's our NBA season preview. Thank you guys for sticking around. We have some NFL games we're going to cover here shortly. So stick around. We're going to get to those here and make sure that you have everything you need to know going into this week, plus our best bets. Don't say anything at all. Last thing we'll do on the NBA here. Don't say anything at all. You have to say something bad about the NBA. The NBA. Oh, man. I love the NBA. That's the problem. I love the NBA. We have too many soft players in the NBA. I think there's too many soft players in the NBA. I think the stars need to not be soft. And we've seen that with a few teams and a handful of players. And, there's a lot of drama in it. And when it comes to I get mental health is a big thing. I'm getting political here a little bit, but I missed the Jordan days when things were just you just played through everything. And, it had to be a killer. It's just I miss some of that stuff. So there you go. There's say something bad about there's too many soft stars in the NBA.
I agree. If I had to say something bad about the NBA, God, I'm so sick of the 3-point shot.
Okay.
As a coach, when I see guys running a fast break, a 3-on-1 fast break, you got your point guard bringing it up the middle, and the two guys on the outside run to the corners of the 3-point line. I don't have any hair, but I want to just beat my head against the wall. Take the ball to the basket, for God's sake. I would love to see the NBA get rid of the 3-point line. And that's my controversial take.
Go back. Hot takes.
Get rid of the 3-point line and just let these guys go out there and play. And that way, because even little kids The first thing, you got a kid that's like, waist high, and the first thing he's going to do is go stand out there behind the 3-point line and try chucking it up. And it's just ridiculous. I'm tired of the 3-point shot. I'm tired of it.
It's crazy. So there you go. Guys, enjoy the NBA season. We're going to be covering a lot of all the ins and outs, top stories, everything throughout the course of the season. So make sure you check the Speez, the Benchmark Show, and us every single week so that you guys know what's going on. You guys got a lot of NFL stuff going on too. So make sure you go give them a follow if you have not already. Let's get one more shout out reckoning for Speez and the Benchmark if you can. Appreciate that. So